Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and today we will discuss the situation in Ukraine on the 3rd of August of 2023. Today we have a lot of very interesting updates, so let's start. And one more time, today is the 3rd of August, so according to Prigozhin, according to the head of Wagner's, the Wagners will return back to somewhere or to go somewhere on the 5th of August. So there are 2 days left before the big returns of big bad Wagner. And before this video, I took a decision to collect as much as possible information regarding Wagner and regarding the events that took place with them since the probably of beginning of June till today, and what we have. Let's first increase the number of updates, and this is the numbers. All these updates are connected with Evgeny Prigozhin and Wagner forces. And first of all, don't remind you that Wagners were redeployed on the territory of Belarus, and they had some camps. Furthermore, the local authorities have legalized the mercenaries, legalized the volunteers, and currently Wagner has a real legal status on the territory of Belarus. For example, one of the freshest update that we got dated on the 1st of August, and according to this update, Wagner's stopped recruiting soldiers. And currently this is no longer the PMC Wagner, but this is Wagner Group, according to Prigozhin. So starting on the 1st of August, so 2 days ago, the group of Wagner completed the recruiting process. One more time, I'll remind you that the main Wagner base is located in the not very far from Minsk, very close to the capital of Belarus. This is the Wagner base. As you can see, this one is very powerful, very big one. According to source where we have, at least some sources were saying that there are around 10,000 Wagner soldiers on the territory of Belarus. I believe that there are more Wagners, but who knows the real number of Wagner forces, whether 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 or even 100,000 soldiers all over the world. Currently it's very difficult to understand. Furthermore, don't forget that few days ago on the 29th of July during the forum in St. Petersburg, Russia, Africa, Wagner Prigozhin also visited that forum. Probably he had meetings with the leaders of African countries and many other countries. And I'll remind you that the head of Nigeria didn't visit Moscow, didn't visit Russia, didn't visit St. Petersburg, and we know how did that behavior ended, and it ended with the military coup. And during that summit in Africa, the pro-Russian forces took power in that country in Africa, and after that a lot of events took place, and we will come back to this situation in a minute. Furthermore, during the previous months, we got a lot of updates from the border between Belarus and Poland. For example, the main Wagner camp was redeployed in the vicinity of Brest, the southwestern settlement of the Republic of Belarus. And on this video, we see official video from the Ministry of Defense of Belarus. And on this video, we see how Wagners were making training process with 138th or with 38th Mechanized Brigade of Republic of Belarus. The soldiers of Belarus told us that there were a lot of interesting exercises, that they got a lot of experience and so on. Furthermore, during the previous days, we got a very interesting accident with the helicopters. If you remember, the two Belarusian helicopters crossed the borders, at least according to the Polish official authorities. And after that, and today, the Polish authorities reported that they will deploy their own helicopters, probably Apache, on the borderline with Belarus. And also the Polish military authorities reported that from now on, they have all legal rights, and they will shut down any air target if they want it. So it's some kind of awareness to the Belarus and to Wagner forces as well. Also, a lot of updates are coming from Grodno area, from the northwestern settlement of that small country. The Russian sources, Belarusian sources, and Ukrainian sources and Western sources reported that around 100 Wagner soldiers were redeployed to Suvalki corridor, to this area, to the small border area between the Russian Federation, the territory of Kaliningrad, and Grodno region of Belarus. And so we are talking about this Suvalki gap. This is a very important, strategically important area. And if you remember, at the beginning of the special military operation, when Russia entered Ukraine, the Baltic states closed the passage for Russian and Belarusian cargoes through their territory, and basically they started a trade blockade of Kaliningrad at the beginning of the special military operation. The Russians at those days, of course, it was a very terrible situation, because there is not just problems with the Baltic states, but there are also problems using the Baltic Sea, because of a very difficult process of supplying this territory. So, but later that situation was resolved. But anyway, and currently there is a very interesting trend among the Wagner forces and forces on the territory of Belarus. Currently, we almost every single day we're getting more and more photo and video confirmations of Wagner forces on the border with Poland, with this icon of Wagner forces. So this is like some kind of funny trend from the Wagner forces. They're trying to bother you Polish authorities as much as possible. So this is the situation, and I believe that we're going to see more and more such updates, and we will of course discuss them every day. So this is about Wagner's on the territory of Belarus, and of course 5th of August is going to come the day after tomorrow. Furthermore, we got a lot of updates of redeployment process, and according to the sources we have, the like public sources, people calculated around 12 convoys that crossed the border between Belarus and Russian Federation in direction of Belarus. Like 12 convoys with different number of trucks, armored vehicles was redeployed on the territory of this small country. Very interesting situation. And now we're moving to Africa. Today we also got a lot of updates, as we discussed. The Nigeria, the Mali, and other countries supported Russia. Senegal supported Russia, supported Russian authorities, and so on. The Western countries started their evacuation process of people, and today we got a very interesting update from Mali, from a small country that located on the north of Burkina Faso and on the west of Nigeria. This is the update, and we have like the first photo confirmation that authorities and leaders of Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso just had meeting in Mali to discuss the possibility of rapid deployment of Wagner forces to the country. This is probably the most important update of today, and currently we now have at least 3 possible directions of Wagner's. 3 possible directions, as you can see, too many updates for a small region of Africa. Not a small, of course, a very big one. So 3 possible directions. The first one, that Wagner's will be redeployed somewhere in the territory of Ukraine, and according to artillery preparation, artillery actions and intensifying of artillery duels, I believe that maybe as a possible solution, the Wagners can be redeployed in direction of Kharkiv, and basically they will start offensive operation and storming process of this settlement, and Kupyansk as well. By the way, the Ministry of Defense today of Russian Federation reported about some progress in this area, that the Russians managed to develop their bridgeheads in the vicinity of small settlements like Oleshki, like Vilshany, like Travnevaya. Basically the Russians advanced to the south in direction of the main road that connects Kupyansk with Novoselovsk in this area. And also the Ministry of Defense of Russian Federation reported, as a result of those clashes, the Ukrainians lost 150 soldiers, 5 armored vehicles, and 2 artillery systems. Probably those were the heaviest losses of the Ukrainians during the previous days. But let's return back to Wagner's. So this is the first direction to support Russian forces in Kharkiv area and in the Kupyansk front line. The second direction is the border with Poland, and we can split this territory in 2 parts. The first possible direction of redeployment of Wagner's is in direction of Kaliningrad, so to secure the Suvalki gap and not to allow the Western countries to cut this territory, because as I understand, because of the fact that the Russians established trade blockade of Ukraine, the Western countries probably think that they have legal right to start the trade blockade or cargo blockade of Kaliningrad, like an act of mirror response. And in this case, of course, the Wagners need to act and need to do something. And of course, the second possible direction of Wagners is the south, in direction of Kovel, in case of Polish authorities, military authorities with Baltic states will take a decision to send their forces in this area and to occupy the western part of Ukraine. Of course, in this case, Wagners will be moved to the south, and they're going to start a very fierce clashes. So the first direction, Kupyansk, Kharkiv. Second direction is Polish border, and of course, the third direction is to redeploy Wagner forces in Africa and to fight with the France forces, probably always the allies of Western countries that located on the south in countries like Guinea, Sierra Leone, Liberia, and many other countries in this golden African ring. Let's call it like this. So we'll see. 2 days left, and you know that Prigozhin is a man of word, and if he told that Wagners are going to return back on the 5th of August, I believe that Wagners is going to return back somewhere on the 5th of August. So we'll see. Anyway, it's going to be interesting. Anyway, it's going to be probably a real show, and probably this is going to be the breaking moment. Now, let's move to the ground and let's continue with what we have just started. We're going to start talking, continue talking about the Kupyansk front line. Let's remove unnecessary icons. And one more time, the Ministry of Defense reported that as a result of fierce fightings and offensive operation, the Ukrainians lost 150 soldiers, 5 armored vehicles, and 2 artillery systems. The Russians were attacking from Belishany and from Pershatravnevo, so in direction of Petropavlovka, Sinkovka, Stepovo, Novoselovka. So what can I tell you about the situation? Probably the second important update from this area is that the Russians published the video of Ka-52 attack, and the author of this video claims that this event took place in the Kupyansk front line. So basically the Russians have redeployed at least a part of attack destroyer helicopters in this direction. We know the what kind of weapon is that, using the modern missiles like Vikhr and many other types of missiles that the Russians have within the distance of 15 kilometers, which basically makes these helicopters invisible for Ukraine air defense system. Now this type of weapon is here, so basically the Russians are ready to ruin and to destroy the Ukraine armored vehicles. From one side, we can say that the Russians started or continued their offensive operation that they launched in the Kuzyumovka bridgehead, but from another side, based on experience we have from the previous Russian offensive operation, I can say that this is also might be not just offensive operation, but the operation to maintain the gray zone between Ukrainian positions in Kupyansk, Petropavlovka, Novoselovska. So basically the Russians captured the fields because maybe the Russians expect the Ukrainian greatest counteroffensive operation. Why I'm saying that? Because according to the Western deployments map, the Ukrainians have accumulated on this bridgehead at least 14th Mechanized Brigade, 88th Mechanized Brigade, 41st Mechanized Brigade, 43rd Mechanized Brigade, 32nd Mechanized Brigade, and of course the old 92nd Mechanized Brigade. So 6 mechanized brigades in this area and no territory defense brigade. If the Ukrainians were planning to defend this territory, of course there would be more bigger number of territory defense forces and less mechanized forces, but we'll see significant number of mechanized forces, mobile mechanized forces, which main purpose might be to attack and to penetrate the Russian defense belt. For now, I can't tell you for sure what exactly is going to happen. Or the Russians will attack, or the Russians will defend themselves. And currently they just maintain the gray zone between the Ukrainian edge position and their own mainland. A lot of updates are coming from Novoselovska and Kuzyumovka. The Ministry of Defense report also added that the Russians managed to advance in this area as well, but today we got a lot of video confirmations either from the Russians and from the Ukrainian side. For example, the Russians published the video how they were bombing and shelling the Ukrainian positions inside the settlement. So this is a fresh video. This is not something that took place 2 months ago. This is like the very recent situation, very recent event, which shows that probably the previous speculations that the Russians managed to establish control over that settlement was fake, or just a small speculations from, let's say, military expert like Rybar or something like this. Currently, we see that Ukrainians control at least the southern part of that settlement. Furthermore, the Ukrainians published the video how they managed to discover and to destroy the Russian tank in this area. Russian tank. So this is another confirmation that there are still Ukrainians in this area, that they have control over this area, and that they are able to attack and destroy Russian tanks. The Russians from their side published 2 videos. For example, on this video we see how the Russians discovered the Ukrainian tank and how the Russians managed also to destroy this tank as a result of artillery strike. So this is the position. This video is geolocated. This is also very fresh, and this video was published just today, so I believe that this event took, if not today, then yesterday. And another video also from the Russian side. The author of this video claims that Ukrainians for some reason took a decision to make a barbecue under the open sky. The Russian intelligence managed to discover the Ukrainian barbecue forces, and after that the Russians took a decision to bring them some dessert, and as a result of that attack probably the Ukrainians managed to taste the dessert or something like this. So this is the situation in this area. Now, as I understand, according to geolocated updates we have, the Ukrainians at least controls not just the yellow cloud that we shown before, but also this small yellow cloud. So this area is also on the Ukrainian control. At least geolocated video confirms the presence of Ukrainians in this sector. We will update this map before the next video. Now we are moving to Liman front line. From today we haven't received nothing, no updates, no video geolocated and so on. The Ministry of Defense reported that as a result of fierce fightings the Ukraine lost 30 soldiers. So basically maybe this is the reason of absence of any videos from this bridgehead, because of reduced of any activity from both sides, either the Ukrainians and the Russian. Just no, my bad. 30 soldiers during the process of repelling attack of Ukrainians in direction of Dibrovo-Kuzmina. The total losses were around 110 soldiers. But one more time, no video geolocated updates about the situation. Probably there were some clashes, some fightings, but yet we can't provide any proofs about any progress from both sides. Now we're moving to Donetsk front line. The Ukrainians continue publishing more videos of drone strikes in this area. We got just one update from the Russian Lancet strike in the vicinity of small settlement Khromovo that located on the Ukrainian side of these fields, and basically this confirms that Khromovo still remains under Ukrainian control, and the Ukrainians from their side continue bombing and shelling the Russian positions with drones and artillery system. On this video we see how the Ukrainians managed to discover, to be more precise, Ukraine AT's air mobile brigade managed to discover the Russian Buk air defense system, and after that the Ukrainians launched HIMARS, and using HIMARS that air defense system was destroyed. So probably not a very good day for the Russian air defense forces. And the Ukrainians as usually published more videos of attacks against the Russian light vehicles and infantry using just FVP drone. On this video we see how the Russians packed inside a light vehicle and start some kind of process of redeployment. The Ukrainians track that vehicle, then start hunting this vehicle, and at some point the Ukrainians attack that vehicle and probably destroyed. I'm not sure about the losses among the personnel, but the vehicle was damaged, and currently I don't think that the Russians are able to use this vehicle longer. Furthermore, we got another video of attack against the Russian tank in the same area. As we can see, the Russians were redeploying their forces from one position to another probably from Zaitsevo or in direction of Atradovka or in direction of Klishchevka. The Ukrainians discovered and attacked that tank behind, exactly in the area of probably munition store or something like this, and as a result that tank was damaged and probably destroyed. So one more time, we are going to our probably the things that we usually do almost every single day for the previous days. We will increase the number of events and we will try to analyze the new picture. And currently I don't see that anybody, either the Russians or the Ukrainians, are winning. We see like 50-50. Both sides are able to damage. Both sides are dealing significant damage. The only difference is the tactics that both sides use. The Ukrainians are trying to base their activity just on drones and probably HIMARS and long-range artillery. There are not very many artillery-like events, just drone events, and the number of drones is significant. As you can see, almost every single day, dozens of drone events, and the Russians are relying on Lancet strike, but not so much, 20-30% of events, and mainly they're using artillery systems, trying to suppress Ukrainian forces, Ukrainian armored vehicles, and also Ukrainian artillery systems. So this is the picture, but to tell the truth, I would say that the ratio between events that we receive from this bridgehead is 5-4 in Ukrainian favor. So maybe this is not like the question about the number of things or events that happens. Maybe the Ukrainian assault forces are working better than the Russians, and they know how to break the people's minds, trying to publish as much as possible geolocated videos. But anyway, when even talking about this assault war, the Ukrainians, at least this war, they're winning in comparison with the Russians, of course. Now we're moving further and we're going to Donetsk. As I remember, we also got some few updates from that bridgehead. As we discussed in the morning, the 4th 110th Brigade started claiming on their military authorities about the very bad conditions. No, we haven't received nothing from Avdiivka, from this area, just few artillery strikes from the Ukrainian side, from Novo Mikhailovka, and descent in direction of Russian positions in the area between Stepnoye and Alenivka. For example, in this video, we see how the Ukrainians managed to discover the Russian artillery D-30 Howitzer. This is 55th, as I understand, artillery brigade, and that brigade managed to destroy. Let's check whether it's 55th brigade or not. Yes, 55th shield with the fire. So that was video published as a result of counter artillery duel. And on this video, we see another system, a Russian Grad system. The Russians were trying to hide Grad system among the forest line, and also probably 55th artillery brigade managed to discover that Grad system and destroy. So this is not, of course, very good in the south of Marinka. The Russians lost during the previous 48 hours at least 2 artillery systems. So we'll see whether the Ukrainians are going to use the situation or not. Now we are moving to Vremivka tactical bridgehead, and we got a lot of very interesting updates from this side. First of all, as we discussed in the morning, the Ukrainians launched offensive operation inside of Urozhaine, but later we got update about the results of that attack. The Ukrainian attack was repelled. The Ukrainians had losses and were forced to step back. According to the Russian sources, the Ukrainians lost around 20 stormtroopers and 1 personal armored carrier. And after that, the Ukrainians stepped back towards like Makarovka and so on. But this is not the most important. The Russians published the video how they managed to discover Ukrainian artillery system that Ukrainians were using to supply and support their forces during attack, and the Russians were using Lancet, and as a result of Lancet strike, the Ukrainian lost another artillery system, or even not artillery system, but tank. Yes, on this video we see the strike against tank. You know that Lancet is a very interesting weapon. The Ukrainians need at least 2, 3, 4, 5 attempts to attack an armored vehicle or tank to destroy it, but the Russians need just 1 Lancet and 1 tank is going to be destroyed. This is not like a speculation, this is the fact that is confirmed by the experience we got during the previous days of special operation. The most interesting updates are coming from Staromlynovka. As you can see, the Ukrainians published at least 5 videos from this bridgehead. A lot of Lancet strikes in this area, a lot of strikes, a lot of attempts to ruin and reduce Russian possibilities and supporting and supplying this area, the northern area in Urozhaine and Staromlynovka, Staromayorsk. In this video we see how the Ukrainians damaged the track, and after that track destroyed and burned. So that track the Russians were using probably to bring some probably munition or something like this. On this video we see another truck was destroyed, or Kazakh or vehicle between the between the buildings, between the trees. The Ukrainians discovered and then they attacked, and probably as the result of the attack that truck was damaged and so on. On this video we see another supply truck that Ukrainians managed to discover, and as a result of drone strike that truck was also damaged or even destroyed. And more videos from the same settlement. The Ukrainians on this video claims they discovered tank or armored vehicle, also attacked and damaged it. And just one artillery strike, or not even a artillery strike, also another drone strike against another Russian armored vehicle or even tank. So as you can see, currently the Ukrainians, as soon as the Ukrainians forced the Russians to step back from Staromayorsk, the Russians have control just over Urozhaine. This settlement, Staromayorsk, is reduced to ruins. There are no places where the Ukrainians can hide, can get their strongholds, and they understand that until the Russians have possibilities to supply and support their forces in the north using this small settlement Staromlynovka, the Ukrainians will lose the battle. The only thing they need to do is to suppress and pin down the Russian forces in that area, and if they can do this, if they can cut and establish fire control over these roads that goes to Staromayorsk, only after that the Ukrainians will be able to continue advancing to the south in direction, of course, of Urozhaine, to force the Russians to step back to the south, and also from Staromlynovka also in direction of Zavitne Bazhanye. If we will increase the number of updates that we receive from this bridgehead since the 23rd of July, we're gonna see that Ukrainians are very focused in this area. They used to be focused in Staromlynovka or Urozhaine, now they're focused to the south and trying to suppress and to force the Russians to step further back on this bridgehead. Also, we got another very interesting update. Just a second, let's remove the unnecessary icons. And Lancet usage. Today we got the very interesting statistic from Last or More channel. According to this source, we have, at least on the 3rd of August, at least 500 episodes of usage of Lancet. I'm not saying that there were just 500, maybe there were maybe 2,000 or 3,000 of usage of this type of weapon. We have 500 geolocated videos of usage of Lancet. Of course, the number is very big. Probably the Russians managed to destroy a lot of Ukrainian artillery systems, tanks, and so on. But when I saw this number, 500 like Lancet strikes, I always remind myself the picture in the vicinity of Bakhmut. One more time, just take a look at this picture, and the number of usage of drone by the Ukrainian side, and this is just for 2 weeks. So if the Russians used 500 Lancet strikes, so probably the Ukrainians used maybe 1,000 strikes with regular drones. Of course, we can't compare the damage that these two types of drones can deal. Of course, probably the Ukrainians need to use 10 FVP drones to make the same damage as one Lancet, and maybe in some cases even 100 FVP drones can't deal the damage that Lancet can do. But anyway, we see the completely two different doctrines that both sides use. The Russians are trying to focus on heavy weapon, and the Ukrainians are but less usage but heavy weapon, and the Ukrainians are trying to develop their doctrine in direction of less damage but more damage in units. I don't know how to explain to you. So this is two different doctrines, and I believe that we'll see, and both of them will develop their personal doctrine, and we'll see who was right, who made the correct stakes, because it's a very important question. Now we're moving further to Bradley Square. Today we got also a lot of updates from this territory, from this bridgehead. The Ukrainians took a decision not to waste, not to use their armored vehicles. They were attacking just with infantry. And we got a lot of updates how the Ukrainians were moving their infantry from one position to another, from one trenches to another. Of course, for some reason, the Ukrainians were doing this during daylight, maybe because of being afraid of getting on the minefields, and the Russians were bombing them heavily with artillery strikes. In this video, we see how the Ukrainians first sent infantry, then they sent some light vehicles to support, but that light vehicle was damaged probably by mine, or that light vehicle was attacked by anti-tank weapon, I don't know, but the Ukrainians lost some time, and after that, that armored vehicle was destroyed. The same updates we're getting from the north. Another video how the Ukrainians were redeploying in this area using infantry. Probably they were retreating back or stepping back, or probably they were getting to attack. Anyway, some sort of time the Russians started bombing this area with howitzers. The Ukrainians lost some soldiers and were forced to step back. And of course we got some videos, and this is probably the most important video of this bridgehead of today. Basically, the Ukrainians' offensive operation can split in few parts. The first part is a massive mid-armored attack, when the Ukrainians send significant number of Western weapons that are destroyed during those attacks on the minefields as a result of Lancet strikes. And after that, the Ukrainians try to dig in deeper using infantry, like to establish fire positions, machine gun positions, maybe to destroy some Russian forces. And the final wave is engineering equipment. The Ukrainians, after they establish the bridgehead with the forces, with infantry, send engineering equipment with one purpose: to continue the mining process, to develop the safe unmined area further to the west, to the south, to the east. And basically the Ukrainian offensive operation in this area got to the third stage, when they start moving their engineering equipment in this area to demine this area, to build new fortifications or something like this. So after that, usually the Ukrainians start the next wave of massive armored vehicle attacks, then infantry, and one more time engineering equipment. So everything like according to plan, everything according to the standards, everything according to the Western things. No fantasy, no imagination, just step by step. I'm not saying that this is not a good tactic. It's a good tactic, as I understand, if you know the process. So we'll see whether the Russians are able to find their own process against this process. And of course, today the Ukrainians, as we discussed, attacked, and at 10 a.m. we got updates that during the day the Ukrainians lost at least 2 infantry personal carriers and a few dozens of infantry that were operating in this area. When talking about Petykhatki, we haven't received any updates, just the usage of guided bombs in this area from the Russian side, as we discussed in the previous video in the morning. The Minister of Defense of Russian Federation reported that as a result of fierce fightings in this area, the Ukrainians lost at least 220 soldiers, 9 armored vehicles, including 3 tanks and 5 artillery systems. And we're talking about the area from Petykhatki to Marinka, to Ugledar. And about Donetsk, we missed that update. According to the Ministry of Defense, the Russians repelled at least 8 attacks in this area, and the Ukrainians lost 380 soldiers and 10 armored vehicles. So during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians at least lost up to 2 battalions. And when talking about Kherson, the losses were around 30 soldiers, 5 armored vehicles from the Ukrainian side. The Ukrainians published additional video to the videos that we discussed in the morning. The Ukrainians managed to discover and to find Russian raiders on the buildings in Oleshki, and as a result of probably drone strikes, yes, of FEP drones, those raiders were destroyed, and probably that reduced the Russian reconnaissance possibilities. And probably that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.